Alright guys and gals, this is Northman. We are back with more testing Tarkov. Now, on this one, I was going over loot-related skills, specifically charisma, attention, perception. I include memory in here, just because memory is affected by looting and searching, so I wanted to get that data now, so when I do a memory one, I already have it. So we'll kind of ignore that. I left off searching, because searching kind of needs its own. That skill is not. I was struggling to get that in with all of this. I want to keep this a little bit shorter, anyways. So that being said, let's get into it. So this first chunk here, this was just pulse check, looting or searching containers. Specifically, I just went on to reserve, ran around, and didn't take any items out of the containers. And so as you can see, we got a breakdown of raw data here, and then we also have the change. I also took down how many squares of that container's inventory was used and by how many items. So as you can see, there's a couple 2-slot items in there. So I then broke down per square what that value equates to from the change from the previous, so the increase by just searching the container. And then I did it per item. Not a lot of data here to actually make a good conclusion. So I went into a second raid here, and as you can see, I got a few more containers. I include bodies as containers, specifically finding out what they have on them, not searching everything on them. So like body 1 here, scav vest and pockets, those were the containers on that body. And then they had another item, weapon. So I include that as an item. And then for squares, just to keep it simple, I just said each individual slot was one square, because I wasn't very sure how this would break down anyways. And actually, if you look at the bodies here, there's 6 of them, and only one of them actually had a change. So just looking at a body, seeing what's on it, does not actually increase anything. So keep that in mind. It gives you experience points, but it doesn't increase anything. So from the 2 red lines here that say from fighting, that was specifically for memory. So again, ignore that. It's unimportant for what we're looking at here. So looking at the data we got, we see that perception, which is the 3rd row or column, does not get any gains when we are actually going and looking at what's in a container. So that being said, perception can be ignored at this point. When we go and look at attention, charisma, though, those do increase just from looking at the container, and the data is not as clean as I would like it to be. So I think it depends somewhat on either RNG or what items are in that container, because as you can see, we do have some numbers here that just kind of go all over the place. I mean, we have a 0.1, and it's not very consistent across like similar containers. So if I go scav vest, you'll actually see that each scav vest gets a different amount of points in different things. So yeah, it's super weird, but that's how the data came out. So I think there might be RNG involved here. But that being said, you do definitely get points, and you can get quite a bit here, actually. If you look at my attention, it went up by 2.3 just from searching and looking at what was in all of these containers. And that was one raid. Super quick, super easy. You can level up attention pretty quickly if you're concentrating on looting and searching containers. I didn't include any of the filing cabinets in this. I should have, because I'm curious if, say, like Shoreline, where you have a lot of filing cabinets, if that's going to be your most effective kind of power leveling you could do. But I didn't check that, so at this point I would say it is, but I can't quite say, because as I said, I would need a lot of data points to be able to say definitively that that's a good option. Down here we go into the items, and this is where I actually looted them. So this was still second raid, so what I did was I went in, got in a fight with a whole bunch of scavs after searching some containers, and then I took everything off the scavs. So we had a little bit of faux pas on my part. I actually took 3 items at once when I was intending to do 1 item at a time, and so I had to reset my initial here. So that's why this value and these are different, but that's all on me. So looking at this though, it's same setup as before. We have charisma, attention, perception, and memory. The change, the per square value and the per item value, and actually looting the items, you get perception points, but you don't get attention. And I got a ton of perception points here. And where it primarily came from was actually weapons. And I'm not even looking off to the left. I just know that these high values, and it didn't highlight all of them together. Oh yeah, it did. So these high values, let's just change their color to, oh wait, I have it programmed. Never mind, it's not gonna happen. Those high values though are all weapons. It's Vepr, MP133, a Taz, and then a PM. So it does look like the value drops as we went there. So the Vepr got the most. Full size assault rifle, actually semi-auto rifle, and then we have a full size shotgun, and then we have a Taz, and the Taz is half of what the full size shotgun was. If you look here. Then the PM is a little bit less than the Taz. So weapons are definitely what you want to grab for points. If you're just grabbing and you're not grab and dump, which is what I would suggest if you're going to level up perception and charisma, for sure. Go into the raid, kill a whole bunch of scavs, take the inventory over to your inventory and delete it. So you drop it on the ground. And you can quick drop by holding down delete and then just clicking on whatever you want, or just tap delete when you're hovering over it. But this is highly effective way of actually leveling these up. As you can see, I mean, almost 8 points in a single raid just for perception is actually pretty good. And then this is concentrating just on like taking down scavs and doing that and looking at containers. If you were to play normally, I'd say you'd probably look at 2 to 3 points in perception is not unheard of. So we're doubling that or tripling that depending on how your play style is. And then memory, again, don't worry about that. But the charisma is pretty consistent experience when you're actually taking items. You get a lot less when you're just searching. So searching, just to wrap this up, searching is primarily going to get you attention points, and then charisma and perception primarily get points from actually taking items. Down here, I do a little bit of an average for the whole thing, and it actually comes out a lot lower than I thought it would. So per square, it's pretty dismal. And again, I would probably need a couple thousand data points just to be able to get an accurate average across all different items, and realistically that would probably have to be broken down into weapons versus vests and bags and everything. So that being said, this I wouldn't go by. This is pretty awful, especially once we start looking at like the value you get for weapons and everything. But then per item, this is a little bit better to look at, especially like the perception is definitely, I mean, that's a pretty good number I would feel to go off of for an average of what you're doing if you're looting scavs. The charisma is, yeah, I'm not entirely convinced by that number. I feel like it probably would average a little bit higher if I had more data, but this actually took a very long time to do, and that's why I apologize this took so long since the last video. And I also want to thank you guys for all the support you gave me on the last one. The questions, the suggestions, everything was phenomenal. And we've actually gone up, I think 11 subscribers since that one. So really appreciate it. I hope you guys enjoy this. And if you got any suggestions on what you want to see next, leave a comment down below.